Hey, Fidelity. What's it cost to invest with the Fidelity app?
Start with as little as $1 with no account fees or trade commissions on U.S. stocks and ETFs.
That's music to my ears.
I can only talk.
Investing involves risk, including risk of loss. Zero account fees apply to retail brokerage accounts only. Sell order assessment fee not included. A limited number of ETFs are subject to a transaction-based service fee of $100. See full list at fidelity.com/commissions. Fidelity Brokerage Services, LLC, member NYSE, SIPC.
Looking for a simple way to thank your clients or recognize employees for a job well done? A Starbucks card is more than a gift. It's a pick-me-up, a break in their day, and a reminder that you appreciate them. Whether you're shopping for digital or physical cards in bulk, Starbucks cards are the perfect gift to brighten anyone's day. Share the joy of coffee and connection when you give the gift of Starbucks. Shop Starbucks cards in bulk now at starbuckscardb2b.com.
Experience a membership that backs your business journey with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. Plus, enjoy a welcome offer of 200,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
Arizona awakens your senses. Here, a grand wonder of the world is just one shade of your adventure. Dazzling sunsets at iconic stays turn to brilliant nights under a kaleidoscope of stars. Explore endless peaks, rivers, and canyons painted in every hue. Center your spirit. Find your inspiration. Surround yourself in vivid color. Only in vibrant Arizona.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to No Question About That. We couldn't be bothered to do an award. Well, honestly, I just didn't want to do an award ceremony. Bruno Fernandes is the player of the year. Everyone else gets a 1 out of 10. And I can't remember if there were any good goals. Were there any top goals this season?
Mason Mount scored from near the halfway line.
Oh, that was pretty tasty.
It's pretty good.
After he pulled a Makeda a couple of minutes before.
Yeah. Garnacho scored a couple of good ones.
Did he?
Like Brentford.
Yeah.
In the defeat.
While he was praying for another club to come and get him. Or something. Ouch. All right, I'm sure we're going to get questions on that topic.
Yes.
Yes. Well, okay, mailbag pod today. End of season mailbag pod. I'm hoping some of this looks forward. I'm suspecting a lot of it doesn't, looking through the questions, but we'll go through this and see where we get to, right? What else can we do? Ian Wilson says, what is going to happen when we can't find a buyer for Sancho and Anthony and maybe Rashford, when we can't get them off the books? We can't keep loaning them and subsidising their wages year on year. Well, we can, Ian. We can, and that is probably the worst case scenario. Well, the worst case scenario is all three of them come back and Ruben says, yeah, I'm not having you go train with the under-21s. Because that would be about, £700,000 a week in wages being wasted. And let's add it up, about £25 million a year in PSR costs. So we need to find a home for them. We will. What do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely what you just outlined there is worst case scenario. We remember our friends Anthony Martial and even Diogo Dalot went on a loan and came back. Just couldn't get rid of him. And he's playing quite well, to be fair. I had a bit of an Indian summer and has gone backwards again. There is a danger, and that's my big concern with the Garnacho stuff, is that it's all right sort of saying a player can go and he's a bad egg. But let's say, for the sake of argument, you can't find a buyer for Garnacho and you have to send him on loan with a view to buy. And then he ends up coming back. Like, these players are... I think under this management, there seems a bit more brutality in what they're willing to accept in terms of maybe even an acceptance that there's going to be a bit of a PSR rate on some of the players, because I can't see how you get around that with those three. Anthony's a bit of a different case because he's done well, and there are more than one interested party in him, which is miraculous. It also makes you wish that the other two had gone to Spain, because maybe or not they'd be better, because they're that kind of player and there'd be that kind of offering for them. However, that's not the case. I have that concern that Ian has. I have that concern about the worst case scenario that you have, because if you can't give Sancho away, which is basically what we're trying to do, it does leave you wondering about the headache that they've got coming up.
Quite a bit, yeah. Well, on the money side, just to clarify that, because I think there's three different situations with those three. So, Anthony, we need £32.5 million to hit our PSR overhead. Anything other than that becomes an impairment charge. Anything lower than that, I should say, and will effectively take off our budget from this season. Rashford is, as people say, pure profit, so 100% of the revenue is realised on the books in year one, because he's got zero asset value. So it's so useful selling academy players. And then Sancho, it's about £20 million, our PSR cost plus his wages. Obviously, we'll get £5 million back from Chelsea as a penalty charge, which means we only need to sell him for £15 million to break even on that one. They might take a little haircut, let's say £10 million because of his large wages. Get rid of him. Someone will pay that, I imagine. It'd be a shame if it has to be another loan, because you might not get a loan fee with his wages quite high, about 180 a week. And then Rashford, depends what they want in terms of a fee. They've said 40, but there's no market because of his total package. And he was okay at Villa, not spectacular, and then got that injury. So they may end up lowering that price, especially if he has to go outside of the Premier League, because there are 6, 7, 8 clubs in the Premier League that could afford him. There are probably that total in Europe.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's the issue with that one. All right, I like this one. Chris Etchingham, friend of the show, resident Scouser. He's a good egg, Chris. I mean, he's obviously had something go wrong in his childhood that has sent him down this path of supporting Liverpool, and I'm sad about the trauma that you feel, Chris, but we'll get on with it. He said, who was the worst player Fergie ever bought, and would they get into United's team?
Oh, what a good question.
Well, I mean, there's some classic worse ones. There's Bebe, everyone would say, and he was a dreadful player. Do you remember one? Was it his debut or one of his first games? He got the ball right wing. You're like, it's against Wolves. It's against Wolves. It's like, put the cross in, son. And it hits literally the back of the stand, and everyone's looking at it going, bloody hell. What is this? All right, so there you go. Bebe. He wouldn't get in the team ahead of whoever we got on the right wing, would he? Garnacho, or he's not there anymore. Anthony, he's not there anymore. Sancho, he's not there anymore either.
He couldn't play the inside 10, so that's that.
Yeah.
That nullifies that argument. Is he the worst? Would you say he's the worst?
I don't know. It was just one of those stories, wasn't it? But there were some pretty bad players over the time.
Dong Fangzhou was pretty poor.
Dong was terrible, yeah.
Although that's a little harsh. Ralph Milne.
I don't remember Ralph being that terrible, but I guess he was always put up as a...
Yeah, expectation was high. So these are Ferguson signings. Oof.
Kleberson was pretty terrible in the central midfield. He came along with his 14-year-old girlfriend. That's pretty bad behaviour.
Jemba was bad.
He wasn't great. Mal Donaghy in the earlier days, a bit of a donkey. Sorry, Mal.
Yeah, but I mean, he did a job, Mal.
He did a job.
And I don't think we could say the same. I think Bebe is the one. I don't think he plays inside forward. And for that reason.
Turned himself into a striker, though, when he went to Spain. He was at Rayo Vallecano for a number of years. He might even still be playing. Not sure. All right, Joey Mangiani, friend of the show, says, we've been crap for 12 years. Thanks, Joey. Thanks. That's about right. No, there's been some great moments for sure, and glimpses of good football, but mostly crap for 12 years. However, I noticed the perpetual malaise, indifference and zero effort on the pitch in the last 3 to 4 years. What triggered that? Players, Rangnick, Erik ten Hag. Why have we got steadily worse over the years? This is the essential question of Manchester United, isn't
Well, I
it?
know, right? You're going deep. This is a mailbag. You know, this is an hour.
It's supposed to be who's going to win. Anthony Martial or 100 gorillas and that kind of thing.
Yeah, especially asking me that question. That's danger. Okay, so...
But is it worse in the last 3 or 4 years? Well, the results.
This is definitely worse than any time between Van Gaal and Mourinho. I remember the argument used to be, what's the worst football to watch out of the managers? I know there's no doubt that since Solskjaer's sites, it's become steadily worse. I think, maybe the major surgery comments, because the one thing that, however much anyone's split on Solskjaer as a manager, and it's very divisive still today to have the arguments about whether or not he felt like United or whether or not it's the closest that United have been to feeling like themselves, because you've still got the Jose lot who were like, no, well, we went backwards after sacking Jose and bringing in a school teacher, which I felt hugely offensive. Anyway, that's one school of thought. The point is that we've definitely gone steadily backwards since then. The results and performances show that without any shadow of a doubt. However, having said that, we've also won more trophies in that period than we did in the period, or as many trophies as we did in the period before, which is...
Become a cup team, haven't we? It's like the 80s.
Well, the exact same trophies that we'd won in the first few years, we've won again in this fallow period. I think it started with the major surgery comments. Everyone still throws that up as like it's an open necessary comment. Well, we've already that's what I was going to say. We've already done it. We've already the ins and outs. We had that.
21 players under Ten Hag. I mean, I think 3 or 4 of those were loans, but that is major surgery.
Yeah.
It's the problem is we took out the heart and replaced it with a fucking potato. So.
Well, yeah, maybe. But the point you're making that's been made is right. With the open heart surgery, we had that, but also it's like we had that comment, and then Ten Hag, in his first couple of weeks in charge after competitive games, he took all the players in for that after the Brentford defeat, and that made them do the cross-country run. He made a big statement with Ronaldo and made another one with Sancho. There's that phrase I've used on the main pod where we've talked about going to a certain element of going nuclear too many times. You can only really risk doing it once every few years when you're doing a turnover of the squad. United were doing it so often, they're just causing explosions everywhere. And then obviously this season you've had Amorim saying it's the worst United squad in history and constantly beating them with that, which I know what he's trying to do. And in a way I kind of get it. And I feel like if you're going to back him, great to have a manager constantly doing this, because people will not remember, but Ferguson was doing that in his early days. It was a constant battering of the players. You think it's not going to have an impact, but maybe it has to, because I don't know how many people have read that Benny McCarthy interview a couple of weeks ago where he was talking about the low morale and like they didn't feel like there were anyone who believed they could win in the United dressing room. So I feel like all of that's just been a downward slope, and no one in charge has helped with that. First of all, you got all the change at the top, which plays its own part. But this kind of downbeating, telling the players that they're not good enough, telling them that major change needs to happen, even when we've been winning trophies, I feel like it's definitely a more sensitive generation in terms of getting through to players. And maybe there's a generational gap there between leaders and players that we're not quite navigating right. It's a $50 million question with no one knowing what the answer is, but all the problems are there to see. I do think it's fair to say it's been a downward slope ever since. Yeah.
It's a £750 million question, because that's how much we owe to the banks and other clubs and stuff like that. Yeah. All right. Yeah. All right. Asher says, what have you learned about Amorim that you didn't know before he took over? Well, I didn't know he was going to focus on defence first, which he has, and which you can see if you look back in the data over his time, just how defensive and honestly quite boring the football has been most of the time, save for the Aston Villa game where they actually turned up and played some nice football. And so I guess that's that. I didn't know, although I'd heard reports that he was such a disciplinarian. So he has, for various reasons, booted out Marcus Rashford and Alejandro Garnacho, two big-name academy players. I was kind of surprised, honestly. Maybe it's the cultural reset we need. In fact, NQAT Extra this week on patreon.com/NQAT pod is all about that cultural reset, if you'd like to listen to that conversation with Adam. But yeah, those two things, I guess, and quite how defensive the football has been, and then how hard he's been on some of the players.
Yeah, that's the latter one would be for me, because I think we all had a certain expectation that he wouldn't change in what he was brought in to do, and I think there's pluses and negatives to that. But what I didn't know was that kind of boldness, as I spoke about it in the last question, to come out and say something as this 39-year-old manager, or 40, I think he was 39 when he said it, this is the worst United team in history. That's an incredibly bold statement for a manager to make. I think this a comment I've made so often in the past is about United managers being footballing politicians. That's external and internal. So to be able to come out and say something like that, and it's one of the, no matter what happens, good or bad, he'll be defined by what he said there, right? If he turns out to be a great manager, like top 3 or 4 manager in United history, then he'll be defined by what he turned around. Yeah. If he's anchored by it, he'll be defined by it. So, but it'd be great in terms of the actual seismic nature of the statement. He couldn't have worded it any better. So, but he does have that kind of charm, doesn't he? Which we did know from day one. But his ability to pull out a line like that is pretty big, and he will be defined by it. So that I didn't know.
Yeah, I think you're right. For good or bad, he is now. This is the worst Manchester United team in history, quote unquote. I mean, it's not far off. It's not the worst, but yeah. All right. Mick Deary says, Ronaldo 2022, Sancho 2023, Rashford 2024, Garnacho 2025. Why do United always keep having players frozen out by a manager? Is the dressing room that bad? I don't get it. We can also add Bastian Schweinsteiger 2016 or whenever it was to that list. Go play with the children. That was quite offensive for a once great player. Yeah. I mean, in a sense, you could say these were like individual one-offs, or it's managers trying to get hold of the dressing room and demonstrate their power. And they've, until now, I guess, listen, one narrative. I don't think it's as simple as this, but until now, they haven't had a board that said, yeah, absolutely. And apparently, Amorim has. He went to the ExCo meeting in Monaco. He offered effectively his resignation. It was turned down. He was told, no, you're our man, go do what you need to do. And he has reacted to Garnacho's in dressing room and in media comments and said, you're out. And prior to that, Rashford, I mean, what Amorim said about Rashford was actually reasonably positive. You go read it back, right? Yeah. He said he's a great player. We just don't see eye to eye on how football should be. I think Rashford's issues with Ten Hag, which were turning up late at training, the bruising in Belfast, stuff like that, seemed to be a different issue than the one he had with Amorim. I don't know that. I'm reading between the lines, some of it, and some of what people told me. Ronaldo just kind of had to go. You can't run to Piers Morgan crying about the club and expect to stay at the club. I mean, that was ridiculous. So he engineered that to get out. Yeah, because he had £200 million on a year on the table from Al Nassr. So there you go. Thoughts?
No, it's pretty much right. I would say Ronaldo and Sancho, they felt like unavoidable. Like I said, Ronaldo went to Piers Morgan, nuclear. Like I said, Sancho made a rod for his own back in United, really did try and help him. People forget the period where he was given a big leave of absence by
6 months, yeah, whatever it was, yeah.
And he was brought back, and he was at least 50% culpable for all that nonsense with the Arsenal stuff, even if what Ten Hag said was regrettable. What I would say is that both of those things still happened fairly on in Ten Hag's reign, and so he was backed really strongly. I know you were saying that there's a question mark or like where Amorim seems to have been backed really strongly. I feel like both managers were, but I feel like the Rashford and Garnacho situations have been probably more avoidable than the others. Both of Garnacho and Rashford slightly regrettable, because I feel like there is definite courses where you could say well, we could have done better and they could have done better. And it seems like, you know what I mean, Rashford and Rashford and Garnacho in comparison with with Sancho and Ronaldo, those two, the first two that happened, I felt like, well, you can't do anything about that, and you do have to bite the manager this time round. Maybe it is because he's so young. I'm left wondering, did we have a responsibility to manage that better as a football club?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe I'm saying that as a consequence of saying this happened with Ronaldo, this happened with Sancho. Why does it keep happening? It can't happen to Rashford. It can't happen to Garnacho. Maybe the difference is that Rashford and Garnacho are players developed from the club, and you have a different kind of loyalty to those kind of players. I don't know. It's an interesting psychological question. I do find myself wishing that we'd done more with the latter two. Because I don't know why. It's a waste of talent. All of it's a waste of talent. Even with Ronaldo, I just feel like everything was wasted. Everything seems so regrettable. And almost in every case, you would say there's something unavoidable there that we could have done better.
Yeah. And you can add Mason Greenwood to that list. A very, very different.
Yeah.
Kicked out for, well, we know why.
Yeah.
Yes, it says something about the managers and the club when so much talent is going to waste. And I hope with Amorim, with this sort of reset that he's taking, being hardline, I hope that he's mature and got enough emotional intelligence that he realises that not every player responds to that, and sometimes they need an arm around the shoulder. You know, Fergie, everyone assumes he was fire and brimstone all the time, but he wasn't, right? Cantona tried to leave the club twice, and he ran to him, put the arm around the shoulder and said, no, you're mine. He famously, as Wes Brown has said this anecdote, he would scream at players, even if they played well, knowing that they could take it. And he'd be softer on some of the players who wouldn't respond to it in the right way.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you have to do that, right? Sometimes you have to prompt players to change their behaviour. And maybe Amorim has done that, and he just came to the end of the line with Rashford and Garnacho in particular. Ali Law says, why do we seem to have a blind spot with central midfield recruitment, seemingly a second 10, possibly other positions, and being prioritised over an area of the pitch where we're very weak? There's an argument to say we haven't signed sensibly there since Michael Carrick.
Yeah.
I mean, I suppose we bought Ugarte last season, right? I'm not sure he's going to turn into a stellar recruit for us. There's time, though. He's only had one season. He's great at some things and not very good at some others. Who else have we bought in central midfield?
There's
Casemiro.
There's a lot of players that we bought in central midfield, but I think when he's changed so much, that the system from manager to manager, Schneiderlin, Matic, Herrera, Pogba, even though you could argue Pogba's better position, there are a lot of Schweinsteiger, as you mentioned earlier. There are a lot of players that we've actually bought into play in that area. They're just not done very well for one reason or another. And we have changed from 3 to 2 to a deeper 2. Fred, obviously, another player that we've signed in there. It's strange, isn't it? Because it has never felt like we've had a presence in there ever since Carrick. It's hard to look at it and say this was a moment where Matic and Pogba were signed to play together, and now you look at it and say, that's not a very well matched profile. When, you know, at the time you're thinking, this is a pretty good match of a profile there, but then as time proved, it wasn't. Maybe there's been an element of that, is that the transition between managers where one area of the team's become more of an emergency to resolve with the short term. Like, for a time we needed a striker, or we needed a wide player, or we needed a new goalkeeper, and for a long time we needed central defence. So you have a manager come in, he fixes one area, things he can make do with that, so he just signs one player in that. And then you're left with all these ill-fitting pieces, and then by the time he goes to address that, he gets sacked anyway, which is a problem that we've had in different areas of the team. The whole team is a mismatch of stuff like that, where you're going, all right, that area looked like it was on its way to being solved, and then we've caused an issue again by sacking the manager. So maybe that, but I mean, I do agree the midfield has been an abyss for that.
Yeah, and we need 2 in there this summer because Eriksen's leaving. Casemiro, it looks like he'll stay, but and we'll see. With 1 game a week, he could probably manage next season. It's just he's been much better in the Europa League than the Premier League, and they had to change his position. So we'll see. It's definitely an issue, though. Brandon says, is there a sell-on clause for Alvaro when he leaves Benfica? Lots of competing reports. I thought there was 20% sell-on of the profit. Benfica only paid £5 million for him. We had that €15 million, £12 million buyback clause, which probably we should have executed to give competition to Dorgu. Because look, he's a good player. Clearly, he's going to Real Madrid for €50 million, £42 million. He's clearly a very good player. It might be he didn't want to come back, and I could understand that. He didn't get a chance when we had 0 left backs at all. I was instead loaned out. But now we have a space, right? Dorgu could be a good player, but he's raw. Diego Leon, very, very raw. From what I understand, will be going into the reserves, not into the first team. Harry Amas, lots and lots of talent, but raw again. So we could probably do with him. But instead, we'll get £10 million for free. So there you go. It's something, isn't it?
Yeah. And there was that naughty rumour earlier in the summer that United could execute it. Real Madrid wanted United to do that so that they could buy him for a cheaper price.
Yeah. It wouldn't have been any benefit to us the way that rumour was structured. Rumour. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I think we probably should have just executed it and called his bluff on coming back. But there you go. Casey says, how many points better off do you think United would have been if we'd just replaced Højlund with a Premier League average striker? Yeah, well, there's two things with Højlund. One is he doesn't take any shots. Like, he's averaging 1 a game. Yeah. And then when he does take a shot, he's got less and less efficient with it. There was a time he was quite efficient. His completion finishing rate was quite good, and now it isn't. So Premier League average, so on XG, I don't know what average means. Pick one, yeah. I mean, pick one that could have been we could have just afforded in the winter for £30 million. Right. You're not getting many Premier League strikers there. So Liam Delap's available for £30 million, but only because Ipswich have been relegated. Couldn't have got him in. But if you let's say we just magically could have extracted him. Yeah. He got 12 goals last season for Ipswich. Would he have got more for United? Maybe that would have been more than the 4 that Højlund scored. Yeah. How many points would that have been?
I'm not going to answer the question directly. The reason why with Delap is because we might be signing him. And the reason what he brings something different, not necessarily a guarantee of goals, but an expansion of play. And that can result in goals from different areas of the pitch. The question is about a striker who could come in and score the goals himself. I don't know who an average Premier League striker is, because I wouldn't class Delap as that yet. I think he's promising enough to be a higher category than that. Calvert-Lewin, is he an average striker?
Pretty average, yep. Aggressively average, some people might say. Also injured.
Girano left Villa, he was pretty good, and then he left. I know it was a lot of money and we couldn't have afforded him. Let's say, for the sake of argument, Calvert-Lewin, I think he's probably a little bit more aggressive than Højlund. A little bit. Not much. Would we have done better? I think so, because I think at least Calvert-Lewin would be familiar with the playground, and I feel like Højlund looks like he's a stranger on it, which is sad. It's just a massive regression, I don't know. I think maybe even not that much better, because, like I said, the system hasn't really helped as well. It's been a learning curve, and I think the striker might have scored a couple of goals. We might have got a couple more points, but I don't think it would have been materially beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that the club are looking to effectively replace the whole forward line this summer, by the looks of it, 2 10s and a striker tells you... I mean, it's one part of the problem. I think if you look deep into the data, you'll see that United don't complete many build-ups either, so you got to fix the midfield as well. And the defence, and maybe the goalkeeper.
Maybe.
Bloody hell. Yeah. Anthony says the Glazers have been the root of our ills for 20 years, yet they could have made even more money if they'd ensured basic upgrades and showed less neglect, sabotage. Why do you think they never tried to run us even semi-properly? I think they didn't know how. And it's really only now where they've relinquished control of the operational side of things. Now, I'm not saying the new team that have come in under Jim Ratcliffe are doing things right. I'm just saying it's a different approach. Yeah, I think they literally didn't know how to run a football club, and they put people in charge that didn't know how. And I made this argument for years and years. So their debt and the fundamental business model was extremely damaging, but their lack of operational knowledge was, in many ways, even more damaging. Right? You know, so £1 billion out of the club because it's £1 billion out of the club because of debt, but it's £1 billion spent, and that £1 billion spent was spent incredibly badly.
Yep.
Like, how much value for money do we get for that billion? just almost nothing.
Ferguson and Gill ran things under their stewardship. They didn't need any input from the Glazers whatsoever. When they left, they were replaced by people who didn't know what they were doing at that level. They thought money was the answer, so a lot was speculated to accumulate in that period. They thought that you could just sack a manager and give him a wad full of cash. They speculated when we went in the Champions League, so you get heavier spends based on getting us back into it. Then when the money ran out, it was kind of like you back the manager so far, and then when they need that critical push over the line, like Mourinho needed a little bit more back in because we were obviously further away from City, but not so far away that we couldn't challenge. And Woodward fell out with Mourinho. What do you expect when you get Mourinho as manager? When Solskjaer needed backing in that last summer, we didn't have the money for a midfielder, but we found it for Ronaldo. So yeah, I mean, the answers are all there. The money was there at certain points, and then when it was critically needed, they just didn't back the manager at the right time, and they just made the poor decisions. I'm not saying that anything would have been better if we'd had stayed with one manager over another, but certainly you can see the value that if we'd have stuck with one manager for 5 years, we would have probably been in a little bit of a better situation than sacking all of them after 2.
Yeah, perhaps. Yeah, I mean, I think with any business, what is critical is the resources you have and how you deploy them.
Yeah.
And so we've had a lot of resources deployed extremely badly, and that has now impacted on the resources we have. A doom spiral, unfortunately.
We can laugh about it.
H4 Rookie says, is the worst case scenario that United stay bad long enough to lose multiple generations of fans worldwide and become just another club, Premier League / Championship club? Wow, that he's really painting the worst case scenario here, and not a mega brand. So could we be that bad that we're damaged? I mean, you can already see it in the commercials, right? It's been flat for 6 years, and it is now going. There was a big dip in COVID, and it hasn't really recovered properly. Yeah. And Liverpool have taken us on the commercial side. Arsenal and Spurs are not far behind, as are Chelsea, right? So you can already see that we're ahead of Premier League rivals, and up there with Barcelona and Real Madrid, financially that is, and definitely in terms of brand and worldwide attraction, as this question is sort of alluding to. Now we're not up there financially, and there's a long road back. We do have the big brand and the fans everywhere around the world. How long is Edward Wood right? Do we not have to be very good on the pitch to be successful off it? And do we lose those fans?
This is a great question, but this is an excellent question. This definitely.
Did you write a book about some of this at all? I don't know.
No, actually, no. I did. Right. I have written one on the post-Fergie era. I didn't go into this as far as I should have done. And the reason why is because it was published in 2019, so I didn't think that at the time, Ollie was just being made permanent manager. I thought better days were coming. Certainly, the damage that has been done in the last 7 years wasn't done in that first 6 in the post-Ferguson era. But it's a great question because as a fan of United, you don't want to predict something like this, right? You just don't want to think about it. And there's that element of me that thinks, all right, United have that brand. They've got the legacy of, let's call them, let's say, for the sake of argument, they're like a Disney or a Coca-Cola, right? They're a recognisable brand. But the Harlem Globetrotters are a recognisable brand, and nobody really wants to pay hard money. Nobody really supports the Harlem Globetrotters. They're a bit of a spectacle, and you don't really take them seriously. United, when I saw this question, I knew you were going to ask it, so I was trying to think of like the equivalent time in history. So we went 26 years without winning the title. We still drew the biggest gates in the land, but the media landscape and the exposure to what you could see was far different. So in football clubs were still community assets, and I've said that a lot this year about football clubs being community assets, but that has changed because they are sort of global playthings for someone to pick up, and you can watch a United game and you can turn it off and you don't have to bother with it if you don't live in the local community. Whereas if you go to every game and you've already paid up front for the season ticket, you are there every week. That's not a distinction between the credibility of a supporter anywhere in the world. What I'm saying is that you have an obligation to it, so you're likely to go. If you don't have an obligation to it, then you might not be interested. And I do think that there is more of this instantaneous of exposure to stuff, this instantaneous branding of everything, this kind of like banter era that we're in of like everything gets ridiculed all the time. And I do think, and I never thought I would say this, but I do think that maybe in the last 2 or 3 years it has had an impact on United's public face. I really do believe that, and I believe that you might have a situation where a Liam Delap, who would previously never have blinked about, of course he would join Manchester United. He'd like Alan Smith left his hometown club of Leeds to join a club that he would hate. Like, and he talks about this, but it was United. It was the draw of United. You don't turn United down. I feel like Liam Delap might turn United down because he has an historical link to Manchester City, which you would just never have thought in the past. And yeah, I think that's where we are with it. I do think there's a damage there. The interesting nature of the question, talking about the soul of the club, and do we get back there by shedding some of that? I don't know. I think that's a great question, but I always believe, I have the romantic belief that the soul's always there anyway. So when we've had the troubles, that's what I've tried to dig into, and like my own sort of refuge is to sort of go there and sit in there. So I don't see that, but I can see the point in what he's saying, absolutely. And it's the first time in certainly a generation I've thought, there's some weight to that.
Well, I think that's right. Does the brand cachet get damaged? I mean, I don't think people local who are brought up United fans are going to disappear, as you say, because you have an obligation. Doesn't matter how bad they are. It's deep in your DNA, isn't it? Worldwide, right? The thing is, we've got to a point in football where the big clubs, the mega clubs, the elite clubs like United or Liverpool and sort of Arsenal and Real Madrid and Barcelona and so on and so on, now it's more attractive for them to have like the one-off match-going fan who spends more, is prepared to pay more on a ticket because it's a one-off, will spend money on merchandise and food and entertainment and all that kind of stuff, right? And they want fewer season ticket holders and fewer of these loyal fans because they're not as profitable than the tourists, right? And that's not to say that coming to Old Trafford once a year is not a fantastic experience for people. It is, right? And but will we lose the tourists? It's still going to be Manchester United. It depends how long this sort of really crap banter era stays, I think. I mean, at least under Ten Hag, even finishing 8th, we won a big, globally known trophy, right? And there's those moments. We're still a massive draw for media. We'll make about mid-table in the money table, even though we ran 15th this season because we're on Sky all the time, facility fees and all of that. Still very attractive. I bet if you look at their viewing figures, the top 10 are mostly United, right? So haven't lost that, but we certainly lost some of the cachet with sponsors. You can see that. It can be a downward spiral. I thought when United were like 3rd and 4th and 5th or whatever in the first few seasons post Fergie, that we were so rich and so wealthy that even with the debt, we could not fall that far. But to the last question, managed to use that wealth and notoriety extremely badly. Deary me.
Any positive ones?
No, not really. There's some silly ones.
Walmart Business is in the business of saving you time, money, and hassle. Whether your business started in a garage or is a garage, Walmart Business has the tools to help you get where you're going. Tools like free shipping, multi-user accounts, and just about any item your company needs.
Even a double filtration cyclone dust collector.
Yep, even that.
Sweet.
Walmart Business. It's the Walmart you love, now for your business. Learn more at business.walmart.com. Terms apply.
Disney Plus wants to know, are you ready? For Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, now streaming on Disney Plus.
Let's do this.
One of the best Marvel movies of all time is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Hey, you weren't listening to me.
I said Thunderbolts, The New Avengers is now streaming on Disney Plus.
Meet the New Avengers.
That's cool name.
Marvel Studios' Thunderbolts, The New Avengers, rated PG-13, now streaming on, you guessed it, Disney Plus.
Good morning, Crust. It's a great day to be a bread brother.
Ugh, mornings are not my jam. Or jelly.
Oh, come on. Stop loafing around.
I just woke up feeling hollow inside.
Just grab one of the new Morning Uncrustables sandwiches, like Bright-Eyed Berry or Up an Apple, filled with 12 grams of protein and tons of deliciousness. Crust, what are you eating?
It's just granola, not even yogurt.
No crust, no fuss. Uncrust your mornings.
Damien White says, what is Phil Jones' best position under Amorim? Actually, you know what? Phil Jones is a good pundit.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I like him, yeah.
He became a banter player because he was injured so often in his last few years, and he made silly faces because he's got elastic skin and he liked to head the ball off the ground and stuff like that. But I'm kind of sad about Phil Jones's career because the immense talent he had was not fulfilled, and that's all because of injuries.
Yeah.
But he's become a very good pundit, and he's very honest and refreshing because he gives insight and he doesn't resort just to cliches, which is great. The second part of the question says, also, does the loss in Bilbao make the full sale to Sir Jim more likely within 3 years of the original buy-in, or no effect? I don't know. I can see Sir Jim's problem now is that he could really do with floating United some cash, but he's not going to do that without more equity. Yeah. Anyway, I'll let you. You got 2 questions there in one. Cheating there, Damien. Phil Jones, and is a sale to Sir Jim more or less likely?
The Ratcliffe one is the question everyone should be asking, because that's the position that the club will put in after the Europa League final. No one. I wrote a massive Substack piece on this.
I did. What's your Substack, Wayne?
My name. Yeah. In Esquire, Substack, whatever. .substack /ranty, Old Man at Clouds, that stuff. You'd be able to find it. But yeah, on that point of saying no one else can pay the consequences for this because everyone already has. Like, players are paying with their futures, supporters are paying the price in the wallet, and employees are paying with their careers. You can't do that anymore. You're trading on the equity of the club in terms of like selling the youth players on, which, all right, Garnacho's an individual case, but it becomes a repeating problem. Then you are trading on the identity of the club for short-term gain. United can't afford, literally and figuratively, to be put in that situation. Mostly for the question we just answered about the very global identity and the brand and what they stand for. So literally the only thing left is that full takeover. That's the position that the club were put in as a result of not being able to finance any transfers in January apart from Dogu because of the necessary turnover that was needed to make this short-term successful. So that's the situation that they put themselves in to make the Europa League Bilbao bust, and it was bust, and now the consequence can't be paid by anyone else. They've already paid enough consequences. It will be unpalatable for the club to continue to do that, but particularly with the season tickets with the older generation. So it has to be more transparent about what's going to happen with that takeover process.
I can't give you a date, but the way it's worded, it really suggests that within that 3-year time period where the drag-along rights are this when the Glazers can sell to someone else at a floor price, and Sir Jim gets the right of first refusal to match that, and if he doesn't, the Glazers can compel him to sell. That's a drag-along clause here. So it suggests there will be a sale, and the club need it. It will save £20 million a year in interest rates if Sir Jim decided to pay it all off. The fact that he didn't buy the whole club and was trying to buy a controlling interest, 60%, just the Glazers shares, the way Jim O'Neill put it was to say he couldn't afford it. And I think that's a kind of shortcut. Ratcliffe can clearly afford it. His total wealth is probably about 20 billion. A little hard to tell because his companies aren't public. He can certainly afford it. Now, does he want to liquidate some of his ownership in Ineos in order to do it? Or would he simply just run the club in much the same way, financially speaking, and run with the debt and just pay interest on it? Yeah. But what it does do, it makes it harder for him to inject cash without getting equity back at the moment. And it makes it harder to refinance the loans. Makes it harder for him to do stuff that would raise the value of the brand, because he's only benefiting by 29.8% of it, and the Glazers benefit from the rest of it. And so we're in quite a bind as a club until there's clarity around what that ownership structure looks like going forward. Yeah.
Absolutely. Phil Jones, by the way, great pundit. I love that honesty, the self-deprecation in a certain way, but also like the willingness to talk about the things that you'll see about players protecting their own brand when they're not good enough. We've seen way too much of that. And maybe you do even get that with Phil Jones. But you get this honesty that you don't find with other players, where he talks about the mental impacts of what he's been through and everything like that. And even the things like refusing a testimonial and stuff like that, which are difficult to listen to because you don't want to hear anyone talking down about themselves. And also people find some weird enjoyment in that. I don't, and I certainly don't about a player who you could never question his commitment. He's a person I'd love to work with, really, to talk about, even just to talk, have a few hours with, to talk about that mental block, because a few players talk about it. I even think like some players don't understand that element of it, so they wouldn't be able to articulate it. But for someone who does, that's a rare thing.
Yeah.
So to have someone like that around the club for United, I don't think would be a bad thing. So I hope that they do keep him engaged in some capacity, because he's got a lot of value to give as a consequence of what he went through.
Yeah.
And I think he knows that.
Yeah.
I think he's about channeling it in the right way. But I think there are certain players who, they have pretty good careers. He had a pretty good career when he was fit. But what they can contribute to the game afterwards, Jimmy Hill, great example. Like, he was a good player, but what he contributed to the game after he left it was phenomenal. And you get some players like that, and maybe Phil Jones could be that.
Yeah, I mean, he seems to be going down the pundit media route. I wonder whether all that time on the treatment table has allowed him to be a bit more introspective. He had all that time to think about himself, and he does seem to have a good level of self-awareness, which is, I think, not the case in many, many footballers, and indeed footballers turned pundits. So, yeah, maybe he's got a good career ahead of himself in the media if he doesn't want to go into coaching. Toby says, this one's for you, Wayne. Who would win in a wheelbarrow race between the De Silva twins and the Nevilles? Assume both sets of brothers are in their prime.
The Nevilles, they'd take it too seriously. You wouldn't be able to get the concentration levels from... Can you imagine that scenario taking place? They'd be too competitive. I'm not saying the De Silvas aren't competitive, but they wouldn't take it seriously. The Nevilles would take a wheelbarrow race very seriously.
Yeah, they probably would, right? Busy cunts as they were, quote, unquote. Yeah, I'd like to see it now, though. Now it's been proposed, I think we should set this up. You know these guys, give them a call and...
Yeah, I'll do that. Well, but let's expand it to other footballing siblings, right? So we've got the Greenough brothers, the Buchan brothers who played for United. I don't think that they would win. Buchans might, they'd take it seriously if Martin's in charge. What other famous footballing brothers? The Charltons...
The McAllisters nowadays, not sure if they're as famous, the one at Liverpool and the one in Belgium.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they'd win it now because they're the fittest now. What the Wallaces?
Inzaghi brothers, the Wallace brothers.
Yeah, it's hard to think of brothers.
Ferdinand brothers, Anton and Rio.
Yeah, they've got a big chance of winning.
Yeah,
good brothers. The Wallaces were always like they're like the dark horses because they would always be star players in the teams that they played in. They weren't flashy. I mean, they could do flashy things, but you never thought of them as flashy players. Rod Wallace had this incredible dribble. Danny Wallace had a great dribbling ability as well. In fact, they were very similar. I think Rod a little bit better, although Danny probably had a high ceiling. Wallace brothers, go and check them out, everyone. This is like early 90s nostalgia for you. But they could win because they could take you by surprise. I just think that if you keep mentioning all the brothers, then probably the Nevilles would still be the ones who'd take it most seriously and would win because of that. If you imagine it as a school day and they're all school age, they're definitely winning the school race, aren't they?
Oh God, yeah. The Nevilles would be kicking children over in order to win. Very good. What interesting careers this lot have had. Gary Neville, obviously, pundit, hotel owner, building magnate, football club owner. Phil Neville, manager of MLS side Portland Timbers. Is he still, or did he get sacked by now?
No, he was still there, I think.
He's still there, yeah.
You should know. That's your area of the world. How are you not figure on the pulse there?
Don't really. It is my area of the world, although it is America, so it's a 2-hour drive to Portland. So that's the drive from Manchester down.
He's safely enough away from you.
Yeah, interesting town, Portland. they have, I don't know whether we have any listeners in Portland. They're really into food trucks. They have what they call pods all over town. It's just these pods of food trucks you just go to and you look online and find out what the best ones are. And they're into, like, it's that classic hipster thing with food trucks where it has to be two things of different nationalities fused together in one thing.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I don't know. Mexican burgers or something. I don't know what it... Yeah. Korean pasta. And you're like, yeah, all right.
That's where Phil is right now.
That's where Phil is right now.
And if he was running a Korean pasta truck, it'd be the best one in Portland.
Absolutely. All right, we'll leave it there. My knowledge of Portland is very much limited to that. My knowledge of football may be crap too, but there you go. We waffled on for 45 minutes about that. Man, it's going to be a long summer, isn't it? Already the speculation is... You know what I find weird? Someone asked a question about that. If you look at the tweets of Ornstein or Romano, right? The two, let's call them the most famous transfer journalists out there. They have stands. So you're in the tweets of those, you'll have people who are like, it's horny, but also they'll be deprecating the other one. They're like, Romano's a fraud. Like, what is this? What is this? I mean, I'm going to guess that the Venn diagram of the incel community and the football transfer stands are quite overlapping.
Who, if you're having to stand one of them, who are you going for?
Horny, no doubt. Romano, I just can't. He's just such an engagement farmer.
Yeah.
Like, he tweets the same thing over and over and over again.
David is the news hound.
He's a proper real journo.
He's going to tell you the news. That's the news. And then he's moving on to the next news. Whereas Romano's like, this is happening. This is happening. It's still happening. It's still happening. It's still happening. Yeah. It's still happening. I'm sorry, listeners. It's still happening. I've got to keep saying it, otherwise you won't feel a sense of annoyance. But yeah, you get the idea. So that's what it is. And I guess there's a place for both in the modern world, and that's why you get such division.
I guess so. Yeah. Like Romano. Clearly gets paid for that engagement. I'd love someone to do a deep dive on the economics of it, because that's what's driving his behaviour, right? Yeah, it's probably like 50 tweets about Cunha to Manchester United of different flavours, basically saying the same thing. He gets some finances back. I haven't dug into exactly how much that is for those tweets, but I suspect that's driving it. We know he was getting paid by players to tweet about themselves, so where he comes up with some random player that you've never heard of, you're like, oh yeah, ka-ching! I mean, it's fine. He's got to make a living. I don't really begrudge him that. He's done very well at that, but I'm not sure it's too serious. All right, we'll leave it there. Thank you, Wayne. Wayne, future Phil Jones ghostwriter. Phil, if you need a ghostwriter, here's your man. He's got quite a back catalogue. He'll do you solid. Substack as well. You can also catch my Substack. This week I wrote on Bruno to Saudi, so nqatpod.substack.com. Could it happen? I really hope not. And if it does, I hope it's a fucking massive number. Massive. And not the one that's been quoted, not big enough. Bye now. Thanks a lot.
From Josh Hughes Productions, step into 90s tennis with Steffi and Monica, the greatest rivalry that never was. Go match by match through the Steffi Graf and Monica Seles era. The Grand Slams, pressure points, and the moments that shaped these two legends. Hear the backstories, turning points, and how they revolutionized tennis. Explore the haunting what if after the incident in 1993 that changed everything, and why fans still talk about their matches today. Subscribe and follow on Spotify.
This book does not claim to have all the answers. Recovery from such profound betrayal is ongoing and deeply personal. Yet, by sharing this story with all its darkness and resilience, I invite readers into a conversation that has been long overdue. We must break the silence that shrouds MST, especially as it affects Black service members and marginalized communities within the military. We must dismantle the stigmas that isolate survivors and impede healing.